Hello, everyone. This is Sara Lila Cordero. I am the Business Development Manager at Endeavor Miami from Nicaragua, but based in Miami. I'm very excited to be here presenting our second masterclass of the year. In this case, we have our Endeavor entrepreneurs, Richard and Lawrence, founders of Ecosystems. They will be talking about building a resilience business and sharing some of their own experience through the hiccups, the ups and downs throughout their 10 years of experience. These masterclasses are real and possible thanks to the sponsorship and support of our partners. Today, in this case, we have Dell Technologies and Dell for Startups and Broward College through a grant from the Florida Department of Education. I want to welcome Marta Rios, who's the Director of Entrepreneurial Development at Broward College. Hi, Marta, how are you? Marta, you're mute if you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Marta. Thank you so much for your support, making this possible. And tell us a little about Broward College Accelerator Program and why you're supporting these kinds of initiatives.
Of course. Thank you, Sarah, for the invitation, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this special Endeavor Masterclass. It is my great honor and pleasure to be here representing the Broward College Entrepreneurship Experience along with the Florida Department of Education. So thank you for the invitation. We at both of those organizations passionately believe in the power of wealth creation through the infusion of an entrepreneurial mindset to create entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs in our communities. And yes, at Broward College Entrepreneurship Experience, we have a catalog of programs that help not only our students, but our communities develop their business idea and launch companies. So we are very excited to be able to do that. And I'm absolutely grateful for the opportunity to support organizations like Endeavor, who lead the high impact entrepreneurship movement to drive economic growth and job creation here in our state. And my vision is to foster collaboration among all organizations dedicated to creating an innovation hub in our state. So once again, thank you so much for the invitation, for allowing us to support you, and a warm welcome to the audience. Enjoy the event, connect with each other, and let's make a difference together. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Marta. We hope to keep working together and doing more of these masterclass series and more initiatives too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
On the other hand, we also have Dell Technologies. Dell for Startups is an initiative from Dell to support, from a technology side, startups that are growing. We have a really great partnership with them. You can visit dell.com/endeavor. You have discounts and benefits just by being an Endeavor, part of the Endeavor community. You can also visit dell.com/startups to know more of the opportunities that Dell has to offer to startups. Now, straight to the point, I want to welcome our entrepreneurs of the day for this masterclass. Like I mentioned, this is a very special masterclass, like the one we had before with Seth. We have two founders, two Endeavor entrepreneurs today with us. Richard and Lawrence, both founders of Ecosystems. I'm going to tell you a little more about them and about their company. Ecosystems is a rapidly growing water and energy conservation firm focused on proving that conservation is good for business. In 2020, Ecosystem was recognized by Inc. as the 48th fastest growing private company and the fastest growing environmental service company in the United States. They're also a B certified and B corporation. And I want to welcome Richard and Lawrence today, if they can join stage. Welcome, Richard, and welcome, Lawrence. I'm not sure if they can hear me.
Hey, everybody.
Funny setup.
First off, we want to start out by thanking everybody that we know here that reached out ahead of this masterclass to let us know that we have aged by 5 years. As well as his hair has gotten 5 years hippier. So thank you very much. Updated shots are in now in the budget. So today's topic is how to build a resilient and sustainable business. Today, we're going to talk about how to evolve strategic strategy, how to execute on mission-aligned growth, and how to withstand market uncertainties to achieve long-term success. what's special about this year for Richard and I is this is our 10th year in business. So we have some battle scars, woo woo. We have some lessons. We have some great things that we want to teach you here today. Some that you may be able to relate to, and others that may be unique to our circumstances. So, hope you enjoy.
So diving in, we had a great intro, but a little bit more about who we are. So our whole founding mission and why we exist is to prove that conservation is good for business. That is something that has been core to us since our very beginning, because Lawrence and I, as environmentalists and also entrepreneurs, wanted to make sure that we could prove that going green was not expensive, but on the contrary, a really good business decision. How we work today is we operate as the full service sustainability department for large real estate portfolios. So we do everything from help set their strategy, we assess their properties, we execute the projects, a lot of them in-house, or project manage them. And then we do the impact reporting on the back end so that we are there to make conservation easy and there for the entire life cycle.
So if you look at the slide on the right, our impact, this is what drives us on a day-to-day. What's important, what you can see here is that all the metrics on this page align with our mission. Conservation is good for business. Right? You look at 5.4 billion gallons of water saved, $54 million back in the pockets of our partners. So we're really in a sweet spot where it makes it easy to do what we do. We stay motivated. So that's about us.
So the way we're going to schedule this masterclass is we're not smart enough to be, I think, original thinkers in all these areas. What has really helped us over the years is that we have borrowed from a lot of different people. We've done a lot of reading. We've done a lot of evolving. And so as we go through and kind of highlight some of our major lessons, we're going to be doing it in the form of quotes of folks we admire, or ones that we feel like better encapsulate what we're trying to tell you today. So the first one, success is not final, failure is not fatal. Must say, don't get too high on your own supply, right? Because I think one of our biggest conceptions when founding a company and before we got into this is that a company's growth is linear. When you hear about these stories, it's all about the startup story, and then they hit their growth inflection, and then it's hockey stick to the races until they exit or become enormous. But in our experience has been very different from that. We're a bootstrap company. And so it took us about 4 years of scrapping before we actually put ourselves on the payroll full time and were able to truly feel like we had a full business. That's a long time. And that's a lot of, I think, of us having the kind of resilience to continue to know that we were in the right place and we felt like we had the right products and evolve. Now, what happened was when we gained traction, we gained it fast. So on one time when we were failing a lot in the early days, we also, as we mentioned, twice in the top 100 of the fastest growing companies in the US. So we went basically from zero to boom in a really quick moment. And in those moments, you feel like that is also a forever moment, and it's not, right? We were at a great specific time in our growth in the market. People were catching on to conservation, and it was both our hard work and right place, right time. A bit of luck that got us there. Now, going on after that, as we were part of that huge growth moment, COVID hit, right? A lot of businesses struggled in COVID. We had 9 of our 10 projects shut down overnight. A lot of businesses have the same issues. When we opened back up, we do a lot with raw materials and different products. We were hit huge by inflation, right? Something we never had to deal with before. So even though after COVID, we did it in a way that wasn't as profitable as it would be because we had not been set up to deal with that. And now with interest rate rises, the real estate industry has slowed down, and so has our market. And so, we've had a ton of ups and downs, but as an organization, we are immeasurably stronger than we were. But I think that in a short, brief explanation, like a lot of battle scars go with that. So I think it's really important to understand that the moment you're in is not the moment you will always be in, whether it's a really great moment or a down moment. I think another thing to note is that one thing that really kept us going throughout this entire period is that we, from the beginning, I think because we were bootstrapped, prioritized profitability. and we kept a lot of cash in the business, and people thought that was a little crazy, right? But I think at the time they thought it was crazy. Now it's become conventional wisdom. But I think that understanding your business and knowing that putting away a little bit of a rainy day fund is good business practice. And that things are never as good or as bad as they seem.
Next quote that resonates is activity generates activity. Anyone in the company will recognize this. This is Richard Lamondin Sr., one of our life mentors and early business influences. And this quote really resonates for early in our business. When we're out there hustling, you feel like your efforts are not really being met. You're not really feeling like you're getting, one-for-one rewards. But, when it comes down to it, you should not get discouraged, because we will tell you, as Richard described on our rocket ship, it takes longer than you ever think it will or want it to, but then it comes faster than you ever thought. And you have to be ready for when that time comes. So our particular big break happened in a big project out in Colorado. We didn't do anything particularly special on that. We gave it 100% of our efforts, but we happened to catch the eye of one of the biggest multifamily operators in the industry. So you never know what is going to unlock that big opportunity. You treat them all with the same respect. But one thing that we spoke about is preparing for this, and this was great for some introspection between Richard and I, is that your motivation is going to go up and down. Right? You need to remind yourself that every activity that you undertake, every time you go out, have a conversation, as long as you show up authentic and you show up often, it will be rewarded. Maybe not in the moment, maybe not in the immediate, but just know that we are a living example. So the takeaway for this slide, when you get stuck at whatever stage that may be, have a bias towards action and trust the rest to fall into place. Next slide. Carefully choose, then be confident in your approach. Honestly, we forgot who said this quote, but it's we like it and we use it. So
yeah, sorry whoever said it. We didn't attribute you.
Right. When you reach out, we'll certainly give you that acknowledgement. So when you look at ecosystems, we have constantly been adapting and evolving in what we do. But the difference is that every time we've adapted, it's been mission aligned. So it's never felt like we were chasing shiny objects. And I think that's something very unique and something that I'm very proud of our team about to keep us grounded. And the way we look at it, there's two parts to every decision making. The first is choose carefully. First part of the quote. It's not to say to move slow, but it is to say that there are intended and unintended consequences of every decision that we make. And you better believe that they are there. So, early in the scaling phase, we talk about like going forward and going with confidence, right? Early in the scaling phase, we could talk to everybody. We could touch them. However, as we continue to grow, we could not have that individual impact on everybody. We had to rely on our people, approach everything with confidence, and hope that that mission would trickle throughout the organization. So how do you demonstrate confidence? Well, you put your money where your mouth is. You commit to execution of that vision, you allocate the appropriate resources, and you effectively communicate. So the takeaway here is choosing carefully increases likelihood of success. Confidence inspires trust.
One thing before we continue, obviously this is actually not our typical way of interacting with folks. So please, we're going to leave a lot of time for the Q&A. So if anything resonates or any questions pop up, please feel free to ask them, and we'll try to weave them in, because ultimately each of us is on our own phase of the journey. So, feel free, and we'll have plenty of Q&A at the end for a little bit of back and forth. The next major lesson, I think that has resonated with us, and it's one, I don't think it's a big surprise. It's people, right? So kind of two different phases of that, right? One is if you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. It's a pretty well-known quote, but I think that it's important to note that people are an integral part of achieving your vision. Hustle has only gotten us so far. It got us quite a distance when we initially hit our scaling moment. That was a lot of us kind of hitting the road, saying goodbye to our significant others for a significant period of time, and just pounding the pavement. But that is not something that's sustainable full time. And so, what happened was we, in our learnings, learned about the book Good to Great and his concept of right people, right seats, doing the right thing. Now, what is the right people? The right people are the people that align with your culture. A lot of times culture is I don't know, it's something that people stick on the wall and then don't really do much about. When a culture is really embedded in the organization, it's something that is embedded into performance reviews. It can be hired for, it could be fired for. I think probably the most memorable aspect of our culture is the concept of shields over swords, which we use. And basically what that concept is, Lawrence actually came up with it, where in ancient times in Sparta, the most important weapon in the toolkit was the shield, not the sword. Why? Because the shield protected both the individual soldier and the one next to them, while the sword did not. And that's kind of the mindset that we try to cultivate within the team and make it memorable, to say that, hey, what you do in every aspect of the organization affects another piece of the organization. And so what we look for in right people are folks that embody that ethos, that care about our mission, that do the right thing. And that's something that each organization has its own makeup. But as founders, for those that initially flows from you and your values. And so those are ones that are important to us. I think we always try to build a company that we'd want to work for. And so we try to find the right people to fill that. Now, I will say this, there's also the right seats, right? You can have a great person, really mission aligned, but their skill set may not match where they are in a role, right? When we started, we prioritized generalists, people who can do a lot of different things, people who could maybe fill at one point. I was doing the accounting, sales, people stuff, and then we started to layer back. What happened there is, as we brought people on, we brought on generalists. As we grew and as we filled more roles, the roles became more specific. Some of those generalists adapted, some did not, right? And so the right seat is incredibly important, and it's an evolving piece of our journey. Right now, I think it's what we've learned the hard way is, we have a bunch of folks in our organization that have done amazing in adapting and learning, but not everyone who got us from point A to B or from B to C could get to the next phase, right? There are different skill sets. There's different size of organizations that people thrive in, right? It's not even an indication of skill or will or anything like that. It's people fit different types of organizations, right? Some people, as we layered over, some of our initial leaders struggle with the lack of direct access to us on a regular basis. There's all types of things that go on. Making sure you have the right people in the right seats is absolutely the key thing that has enabled us to continue to sustain our growth and make sure that our organization is run not just by us, but by the people that are part of it. Now, the next piece is, when you have the right people in the right seats, are they doing the right thing, right? And this is, I think, an area that sometimes gets overlooked by entrepreneurs. But what's been core to us is adopting an execution system. What's an execution system? Well, there's a million of them. You might have heard of some. There's Traction, the OS system. There's Scale. There's 3HAG. Seth Cassell, who did a previous masterclass, talked about his ops in a box. I mean, there's a lot of different resources out there. What we did is we took the best of what we felt worked best for our organization of a lot of those systems, and we have one. All of them talk about the same thing: people, strategy, execution, alignment, cash. They touch on that. I think the important piece of making sure that an execution system is part of what you're layering in is that what it does is it creates alignment and direction, and it starts to remove some of the burdens as a founder in terms of making sure that everyone is pulling in the same direction. That is an incredibly difficult thing to do when you initially scale, when everyone has their own interpretation of your mission, when everyone has interpretation of how to do things. They all have their way they brought things into the organization. Eventually, we've created our own way. And that's something that has taken time. Now, to be honest, as a goal setting system, for example, we use OKRs, and that's something where we still struggle sometimes with our goal setting. I mean, that's, so I would advise start early, right? Make mistakes, let your team know you're trying stuff out, because we've done that. I think sometimes we've driven them a little nuts, but when we look back to a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, we're in a much better place as an organization. One quote I always enjoy is, when you're tired of saying it, people are just starting to hear it. And that's by Jeff Weiner, the CEO of LinkedIn. And I found in my career that probably about the 10th time I say something is when I hear people start to hear it. And the most I get energy giving thing is when I hear people in our team say different things, whether it's about our culture or aspect or how we're doing things, that I've been tired of saying, but they don't know where to attribute it. That's the moment where I feel like we've actually accomplished what we set out to do. So ultimately, the goal of all of this is to make sure that all of the complex concepts and things that happen in an organization are digested into very simple bite-sized parts. That's one of the most important things, I think, as CEOs that we do. And it's something that still remains a work in progress for us. So this one is probably my favorite management book out there, Andy Grove, High Output Management. He said that there. We've been around 11 years. Where we started was we saw there was a huge issue in the environment. We saw that 20% of all toilets in the U.S. were leaking, that U.S. homes are wasting 1 trillion gallons of water each day. And we're like, what's up with the toilets? And so of all the things within our conservation is good for business mission, we became toilet guys, learned it all on YouTube. And I think what's important is that over time, as we were initially figuring out our product market fit, we had to adapt first to speak the language of our partners. We spoke the language of conservation. They spoke the language of finances, right? And so we had to then adapt to make sure that we could then get them to buy into what we were selling. Ultimately, they were saving, so it didn't matter what their motivation was. But that adaptation has continued through our entire history. As we scaled, we brought our teams in-house. Because we couldn't scale fast enough to meet the demand all over the country. We expanded, as you saw in that process wheel, from doing just implementation to doing the upfront strategy and consulting to doing the impact reporting. Why? Because that was something that enabled us to differentiate ourselves, something that made conservation easy, which is a deeply embedded part of our ethos. But these are all adaptations that we had to come up against. Sometimes pushed by our competition, sometimes in advance of our competition. But every time we made an innovation, something else evolved. And then once again, we had to continue to adapt, right? Where that's gone now and something we're grappling with, two things. One is there's a big trend in our industry called ESG, which some of you may have heard of. Basically, it's an investing philosophy that tries to bring the different social and environmental impact and negative things that corporations do and reward companies that do good. We've had to now adapt to that huge trend, and basically we now are the E in their ESG strategy. But these are all things that continuously happen, and we have seen numerous competitors go by the wayside because they were successful for a period of time and did not catch the fact that the industry was evolving, or that the way we do business and the way our partners buy and everything has changed. So adaptation is huge, but this evolution can be really scary. I think some of the questions that we ask ourselves are, why is this working, right? Sometimes when something's working, we don't always know why, but if we can get to the root cause of that, if we're not taking that for granted, we usually can understand when things change, why that's happening. Do we understand the fundamental principles of why our partners are buying our services, right? Sometimes when we do sales training, for example, they don't understand they think they're buying our services directly when they're actually buying ease and reduction of their need to do the work themselves, right? So why are folks buying those services? Only when you understand that, in our opinion, can you really shift your strategy. Sometimes, for you data nerds out there, it's not something that can be quantified in data. And that's where you see a lot of when entrepreneurs talk about instinct or about a gut feeling. I think that's a lot of time. We're biased. Lawrence and I are both, for better or worse, folks that rely on our instincts quite a bit. But there's only so much data that we can intake. Never have we made a perfect decision with a perfect amount of information. So as part of that adaptation, it's being able to trust one's gut, to make enough good calls and bad calls and learn from those to hone that instinct. The last of adapt or die is, as a founder, we've had to adapt. Our job descriptions have changed. I mentioned before that Lawrence was initially running like all of our operations and I was doing everything else, accounting, finance, people, everything. That was not sustainable. We brought in people, first consultants and then full-time, to do things that we were not good at. We prioritized our areas of genius, which if Oz is in here, is, he helped us codify that. And we also kind of took away our areas of incompetence. That has never stopped, right? It's right now, actually, a few months back, we had to have a conversation about how we were continuing to split our role, because we share the strategic work of the organization, the vision work. But we had brought on enough of an operations team that Lawrence didn't need to oversee operations anymore. So what we did instead is Lawrence shifted over to overseeing our product and more of our tip of the spear, new product lines and service offerings, while I kind of sat in our traditional kind of operating the existing business. So continuously evaluating where we sit and where we can best serve the organization has enabled us to not, for better lack of term, die or go extinct as founders, right? Comfort, in our opinion, is the enemy. When we're too comfortable, we get nervous because so many things are always changing for us. Okay, what is it? Okay, we have a question. Sorry, we have a question from the audience pertaining to this, so we're gonna answer it real quick as part of the flow.
Adapt or die. When adapting, how do you make sure to stay true to your core and your vision, and find a balance of adapting without losing your core? Can you share your experience on this?
Do you want us to repeat that into the mic? So the question was, adapt or die. How do we stay true to our core while adapting? You want to take it?
Sure. Adapt or die, how do we stay true to our core when adapting? I think that goes back to what I was talking about before around adaptation and decision making. As long as that adaptation aligns with your mission, you're not going to confuse your customers. You're not going to confuse your employees. Where you start to lose everybody is when you get confused yourself on, as I meant to put it, chasing shiny objects. So I think at its core, right, every business is different. Every situation is different. But I think if you could ask yourselves those two questions: one, is it aligned with the mission? Is it a shiny object? And two, what Richard mentioned is, does it, why are our partners buying at the core? Like at the very core of it, is it the reason that we think, or is it not? Continue to ask, continue to influence, continue to talk.
To add to that, I think it also depends on what stage a company is in, right? So the big kind of major adaptation that happened later stage was Intel, when they moved out of like semiconductors and into chips and things like that. So, there are big changes and things, and perhaps a mission adaptation that may need to happen, maybe in the early stage, not getting product market fit and needing to adapt basically the entire focus and product line of a company. So I think it depends. I think when talking about core, there are two cores, right? One is the mission, as we talked about. We are fortunate, I think, in that our mission was very clear from the beginning. We know that's not always the case. If that is not clear, we're going to talk a little about support systems later. I do recommend potentially engaging a coach or an accelerator. But the other core is in the core of culture, right? Which we talked about. So in adapting, if it fits within the culture of your people and yourself, I think that as long as there's an authenticity to it, I don't think that it's possible to lose one's core, right? But it does take a degree of discipline in terms of understanding what is the true bedrock mission and what is the true bedrock culture of an organization. We've adapted, I think, in a lot of different ways, tactically and strategically, right? In terms of what markets to chase. Our initial market on multifamily apartments was not where we started. But, the underlying understanding that we were trying to make sure that we can make the capitalistic case for going green, like that never went away. And so if that is not clear, I recommend doing that hard work. It's worth it. I don't know if there's any other questions or we keep going or, okay. The last thing I'll say on this is we haven't gotten there yet, but one of our true ambitions is to make ourselves replaceable within the organization. It doesn't mean like then we get to sail off into the sunset, but if, we at any point can step away for a while and the business does well and runs itself, we have finally done our job of getting the right people in the right seats, doing the right thing. And so that's kind of our gut test on how far we've gone. And it's really hard to get there because we ain't there, but we hope to get there one day.
So this one is a little bit.
Got a question on that.
Sure.
Yeah. What do you think is the first step to getting to a point where you could walk away?
What do you think is the first step to getting to a point where you could walk away? I'll take that one first.
Yeah, it's a great question. Initial caveat is we haven't gotten there, but first step I think is that when I talked about the twofold in terms of like the execution system, I think if there is a structure on how you craft your strategy in terms of clarity of vision and alignment within your organization, and I'm talking here after you've hit product market fit and you've begun to scale, right? Because early days, there is nothing more important than your life force as a founder, in my opinion. But as you grow and as the organization matures, that's no longer the only thing that can drive an organization. So once that moment has happened, that first thing is putting a structure in place where you can do the strategy. You understand your people, what the culture is you want, what types of roles, are your people in the right seat? How do you handle your cash? These are all things that come within an execution system. There's a lot of very smart people that have written a lot of things more structured than us on that area, but that's what I would recommend. And if you'd like, whoever asked that question, to reach out to understand how we do it or some of the resources that we've used, we have our contact information at the end, or happy to, if you reach out to Endeavor, more than happy to help you understand how we took those first steps. But I would say think your execution system.
I think execution system is one side, and then something that we've harped on so far is the people, right? So in your core, do you believe that if you were to step away, that they would take care of your employees, of your customers, the same way that you would? If your answer is yes, and your execution system's in place, you have two pretty strong steps stepping away. That's one of the hardest things as a founder to do, is to feel that your baby, it's literally almost like handing off your baby to the next thing. We're both new parents, so we quite know that feeling pretty well. So yeah, I'd say those are the first two steps.
And getting comfortable letting go, right? That's I think one of the more difficult things that any of us learn, as Lauren said. And the fact that maybe it's only going to get done 90% as good as you can do it. And maybe that's okay, because you can do more important things better. So I hope that answers your question. That's a great question.
So next one, I started saying it's a bit more of a softer topic, but really important for a founder who whose instincts are generally to work at 120% all of the time. And we've been there, certainly, and we've burnt ourselves out. And it took us, hitting rock bottom to get back up, to be able to bring people in that we trusted. And kind of like that last question we just answered, to be able to step away and really empower people to make mistakes, but give them the obligation to learn from them. So this quote is, "The long-term consistency beats short-term intensity." It's by Bruce Lee. If he said it, it must be true. As I mentioned, it's 100%, 120% of the time. When
Works every time.
100% of the time works every time. Exactly. So in addition to that, you need to make time for who you love and what you love. We use a concept of energy drainers and energy givers. When you look at yourself in your personal life, in your professional life, what is giving you energy? What activities, what roles are giving you energy? What activities? Is it tennis? Is it paddle? It's popular right now. But at the same time, on the flip side, you need to eliminate all of your energy drainers. If you do not eliminate your energy drainers, they will suck the fun out of your energy givers, and they will stop making you enjoy what you do on a daily basis. So the second part of that is, you cannot just expect that time and that process to begin. You need to schedule that time. You need to etch out a process. And once you do that, you will find that you free up yourself, both in your mind and, we talk about building a sustainable, long-term, successful company. This is one of the most important things that you could do for the long term.
One of the ways we do that is, Lawrence and I, we both are better thinkers and doers in the mornings. And so we block off a number of blocks in mornings for focus time. And so that's one way that we're able to focus on whatever piece we need to work on, whether it's vision, whether if it's, right now sales for us is top of mind. So I have multiple focus blocks just on sales, on maybe like product, right? And so that type of mental space, I think one challenge that we faced on this was that having a million meetings all day, feeling like I did a ton and not moving the ball at all. And that has required us to be intentional. And it's required us to, I think, understand the power of no, and the power of, as we talked about before, making sure that our people are very clear on what their responsibilities are.
I think too, going back, something that Richard and I got away from for a long time as we were growing is we didn't put time aside for the two of us to sit down to strategically plan. And now we have blocks once a week for 2 hours where we sit down. And going back to the last question, what's the first step to stepping away, right? To feeling like you actually can do that. And that's a big one. It's not just, in our case at least, it's alignment as founders, as co-CEOs. How do we align so that can trickle down the organization so that they can make the right decisions? Question.
You mentioned staying adaptable. Adaptability and consistency are sometimes at odds. How do you know when it's time to adapt an old practice to a new environment?
So how do you know when it's time to adapt a new practice to an old environment? They're often at odds with each other. Okay.
Let me answer.
Yeah,
I think a lot of that is obviously very situationally specific, but to give kind of a high level answer to that, it depends on like what you're trying to adapt, right? So we typically, what's happened is there's been two. So when we talk about consistency, first going to that, we're talking about you as a founder or leader being able to show up every day for your team in a good mindset and run the marathon that is growing and scaling a company. That is what we're talking about in consistency, coming in week after week and maybe not losing yourself as often. It may happen to burnout or to distractions. When it comes, how that plays into adaptability is when we've built in that consistency of, hey, focus time, getting in ahead of things, we've been able to see the adaptations we need to make more quickly. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you that we've also been very reactive at times where we get hit over the head with something that maybe we should have seen coming, and we've adapted out of like survival necessity. But generally speaking, is whoever asked this question is probably more on the consistent side, I'm guessing, because one thing that we really find very important is that we deliberate a lot internally before we speak to our team externally. So I don't know if this is a question coming from the sense of potentially giving your team whiplash in terms of like, hey, we're doing one thing and the next week we're doing another. Sometimes we do run things for longer than maybe we should to make sure the next move is right. It all depends on the stakes, right? Is this existential or is this important? Is it urgent? What is it? And then,
and it's also a big part of that, at least with us, is we've created a culture of adaptation. Because in our organization, I've never heard the term "that's not my job," and that's because
or if we have, they're no longer with us.
Right, and that's because from the very beginning, we've worked that this is not a top-down dictation where we just tell people what to do, but we tell them why they're doing it. And I know that might sound cliche, but it's a big part about what we do. It's a big part about what we take from our leadership meetings every quarter and how those middle managers go down and trickle that information down to those direct reports. So I think it starts, there's no magic wand, there's no checkbox. However, you have to start, as Richard alluded to with the OKRs. Our first attempt at an OKR was actually probably embarrassing if we released it. However, now we're in about our fourth iteration and it's come a long way. And so you have to start somewhere. But I think that's the hardest part, is to start.
Yeah. And in terms of consistency, I'd say let's hone in on consistency of self right now. I mean, the organization and executing well is its own consistency, but where we're focusing here is on the personal, to clarify. And I think part of that plays into where you are in your life, right? We started this company in our early mid-20s when we could just throw down all-nighters like nobody's business. But we also have had children in the past 15 months, both of us. So that's been something that has taken us away a little bit from the organization, caused us to work a bit of a 9 to 5 for the first time in our careers, right? And so there's a time for everything. And so what's happened is we had to be smarter with our time now. We've had to step back as we brought in leaders and things solidified, and we've had to step in, right? So when our sales kind of went a little difficult about a year ago, we both stepped down into the sales process, right? So I don't think that there's a hard and fast rule to everything. I think it's very important to recognize when to kind of step back. And this is something that is honed over time. This is not a natural instinct. And when is the moment where diving in is important, right? We replaced our head of sales about a year ago. That was an important moment for us to get heavily involved. But now the systems, and he's done better with our systems and our ability to forecast and handle and oversee a sales team than we could ever do, stepping back, right? And so that's kind of, and we get it wrong a lot, right? We all make mistakes, but that's an important piece of that consistency. And going into the last kind of thing we have is the quote here: if mama ain't happy, ain't no one happy, which mama in this case is you. What we mean by that is having a support system, being right internally so you can be right externally. I think whenever they say put the oxygen mask on first, right? That's the cliche one, but it's incredibly important because as a leader, there are certain things, team, no matter who they are in the relationship, always look to you as a leader. And it's important to show up positively wherever possible, in our opinion. So what's a support system? We have support system via our families. I have my brother and co-founder, right? That's big for us. But on top of that, we are part of the Endeavor Network, right? Shameless plug for Endeavor, where we have TAP mentors. We have an advisory board through Endeavor. We've been network for quite some time. Part of an organization called the Local Leaders Collective. I'm part of, which grants me a forum that I meet once a month with the same founders. We're able to kind of talk about both professional and personal stuff, right? Because we could say we leave work at home, but we're all impacted by our personal lives. And on top of that, lastly, we've utilized coaches, right? Whether to help us put systems in place. handle people dynamics. And so all of these things are ways that we get right so that we're right for our people and our organization. And I think that is a piece that sometimes get lost in, we hear a lot of people talking about, oh, I work so hard and I'm burned out and blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're not right for your org, eventually that will culminate in something that is not intended, in our opinion. So, and that's kind of it. So to kind of recap, if you have any questions, some of the themes and kind of quotes we covered today, if you want to read them off, go ahead.
Sure. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. Activity generates activity. Carefully choose, then be confident in your approach. And wow, that came full circle at the end there. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right people, doing the right thing. There are two options, adapt or die. Long-term consistency beats short-term intensity. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Remember that for your moms too.
I think just to phrase, like, why did we put quotes, right? Like, why did we sum things up in that? It's very easy to get overly complicated with your adaptations, with your org structure, really anything with business. What is most important is how, at its fundamental core, how do you sum everything up into a simple set of words? Whether if it's your idea, if it's your mission, if it's your vision, or anything in between, how do you get that message and how do you get that to percolate without the organization? And I hope that, Richard, any roundup comments, but enjoyed. That's our scheduled piece, that concludes it. So any more questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Can we drop these?
We have one final question.
All right.
Can you talk more about stepping back and working smarter? How do you decide when it's time to step back? And it kind of ties into some other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think in some ways, with threatening to repeat ourselves, I think it does start with people, right? It does start with having people in your organization that you can trust, but it also, our ownership also goes into, are we designing, the way we think about it, are we designing a role in which success is clear, in which their role is clear and the dynamic, and is one that we can measure their performance. That's a constantly evolving thing, but that piece, along with the clarity on culture and is this the right person for the organization, are the first pieces. Even before like an execution system, even before all that, understanding that the way the book says is right people in the right seats. First who, then what, right? So who is the first problem to solve in that question? Then what are you going to do with those people? I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
I mean, for me, I stuck on the part, I was like, when is the right time? And for me, the time piece, so what is your goal is my first question to you. What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to continue massive growth? Like, what stage are you in? It's tough to answer that question in terms of, when is the right time? But we can say everything we said today along, knowing that you're comfortable stepping away, and everything Richard mentioned around the right people, the right structure. That would be my right time.
Yeah. Wrong time is early stage. When a lot of things are riding on you in the early stage, wrong time to be stepping back. Right time is you're maxed out. You need help. You know what you're good at and what you're not, and you're bringing someone in at what you're not good at. That's the right time to start.
Another question?
We have one more. If there is one key thing you do in hiring anyone for ecosystems, what is it?
If there is one key thing you do for hiring anybody in ecosystems, what is it?
Assess for culture fit. It's not, but also I would say one of the things that has added consistency to our hiring, it has been the creation of a rubric. We didn't talk about this. This is more tactical, but there's one side of it the job description is one thing, the actual job is another, right? We all know that. We've all had jobs where we look at our job description sometimes, like we hired someone, they're not doing half of their job description because they've had other things happen. And so what we use internally is what are the core skills that we are assessing for, and adding that in, and adding that into a rubric in which every interviewer has the same rubric to work off of. Maybe some are focusing more on different parts, but having consistency and removing bias from the process. But outside of that, obviously hard skills are important, but we're looking for that what are the soft skills? Are they adaptable? Can they evolve with us? Are they a culture fit? All of those things to us are incredibly important because obviously they have to be able to do the job. But another thing this is not part of your question, I want to say is that we also don't prioritize educational requirements unless the job needs it. So obviously our head of finance and accounting, they have accounting degrees, right? But outside of that, if someone fits all of our criteria and has just a high school diploma, that's fine with us. So thinking about what's important to you in your organization, for us, it always begins with the right person from a cultural standpoint.
I mean, if I had to add anything onto that, I would venture to say that I wouldn't hire for anything right now. I think that we have, a great leadership team who's super dialed in, like great culture there. I would just continue to challenge them to make Richard and I completely replaceable. That's what I would do. So if I had to hire someone, I would continue to hire Oz to align us and be there more hours than he even is.
I think
right
they're
now.
more asking their hiring process, not ours.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, apologies.
But yeah, hire for culture. If you had to take one thing away, right, bring the right people in the organization. All right. Well, if you haven't noticed, we can't actually see what's going on your screens, but we want to really thank everyone for coming today and for Endeavor for asking us to give this talk. It's important for us, both of us, always to remain. We talked about authenticity, but to be clear and transparent on the fact that this journey is not just up, right? There's a lot of downs. There's a lot of moments, highs, lows. Most of them are actually in the middle, right? And when we created this, we did as we usually do, just riffing off each other, and as you can see, having a little fun with it. But truly, what we want, if you could take away one thing today, it's that you're not alone in whatever stage of the journey you're in. A lot of people have gone through this. We all have our unique problems, but there are a ton of resources out there. And every stage of the journey requires a different resource. We've had to be continuous learners, and the best learnings that we've had were from our failures. And so we've retained, I hope, the humility to learn from those. And I hope you do too. But we've been in this community for a long time. And the support systems here are way better than they were in 2012 when we started. And we encourage you to reach out if you have any questions. We mentor a number of founders and can also help point in the right direction on resources and different strategies.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard and Lawrence, for sharing so much wisdom and advice. I resonated with so many things that you said during the masterclass. I have so many notes right now with me. But thank you. This is what we call the multiplier effect of Endeavor, having our entrepreneurs share their knowledge and wisdom with other founders out there in the network. This is the reason of our masterclass. This is why we're building masterclass. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Eric, who's behind the scenes and in charge of this mega production on our new podcast corner. Also, thank you to our sponsors, Dell and Broward College, for making this a reality. We want to do more. We'll keep doing more. Feel free to share and ask for any topic that you want to learn through our inbox, and anything you're struggling with that we want to bring, and we can bring somebody to the table to talk during these master classes. And I want to share some announcements. We have our applications open for the Scale Up cohort, the second cohort of the year. Applications are open. You can visit Endeavor Miami to learn and to apply. And again, I just want to say thank you to everybody who was joining, and thank you for asking questions. We do this for you. Let's keep in touch. Goodbye.